You know, it's hard to scroll through any tech news feed these days without bumping into something about artificial
Oh,
intelligence.
definitely. It's everywhere.
And it's not just like self-driving cars or chatbots anymore, is it? We're seeing AI move into areas we once thought were uniquely human, like art. Which brings us to a really fascinating question, one that's kind of at the heart of creativity itself. Can artificial intelligence create music with genuine soul?
That's the big one.
Yeah, and you've probably encountered AI in various forms, maybe even heard some AI music. So today, we're taking a deep dive into this whole intersection of technology and art because it just feels so relevant right now.
Absolutely. And the material we're looking at for this dive comes from Soul Chop Records.
Right, from inside the music industry itself.
Exactly. So it's a really insightful perspective. They're right there feeling this shift directly.
So what's our mission today then?
Well, our mission is really to understand what AI can actually do in music right now, to look at the arguments around whether AI can even have soul and hopefully, come away with a clearer picture of this whole thing.
Okay, sounds good. And Soul Chop Records has given us a kind of roadmap for this.
Yeah, they've structured it quite clearly. They start by looking back, actually, at the history of machines in music.
Because it's not entirely new, is it? Machines in music.
Not at all. That's their point. Then we'll look at the AI tools that are out there right now, and some of them are pretty mind-blowing.
Oh, okay.
You also need to dig into that tricky question. What is soul in music anyway?
Good question.
From there, we'll weigh the arguments for AI as a creative partner, maybe. And Soul Chop talks about their own experiences trying out these AI tools.
Ah, so they've used them themselves.
They have. And finally, we'll look ahead a bit. What might the future hold?
All right, let's do it. So, starting at the beginning, the history. What does Soul Chop Records say about machines and music historically?
Well, what's really interesting is how Soul Chop highlights just how long tech and music creation have been linked for decades.
Yeah, right.
And there's this pattern historically. New music tech often gets dismissed at first. People say it lacks realness.
Like synthesizers, maybe?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or think about the Roland TR-808 drum machine. When that first came out, lots of people just didn't connect with that synthetic sound. It wasn't a real drum kit.
But now it's iconic. Hip-hop, electronic music.
Totally foundational. It redefined genres. Or think about the Akai MPC samplers.
Yeah, the sample.
Those workstations, essentially devices letting you chop up and manipulate existing sounds. They totally empowered artists to build incredible narratives just with rhythm and layers.
Okay, so machines entering the studio, that's not new. But Soul Chop says there's something fundamentally different about AI now compared to, say, an 808 or an MPC.
Precisely. The key shift, as they see it, is the level of creative decision-making.
How so?
Well, with those older tools, the human was still very much driving. Programming the beat, choosing the sample, tweaking it just right.
You were telling the machine exactly what to do.
Right. But now, with AI, the machine itself is starting to, conceive musical ideas. It's generating lyrics, coming up with chord progressions, even arranging and mastering whole tracks.
Wow.
So the shift isn't just automating tasks. It's AI genuinely originating musical concepts. It feels more like collaboration. Or maybe, as Soul Chop puts it, interestingly, even a kind of competition.
Competition with a machine. That is a different way to think about it. Okay, so AI tools making creative choices. What are these tools? What's actually out there doing this?
Soul Chop Records points to a few prominent ones.
Yeah.
You got tools like Suno. Apparently, it can whip up a full song from just a text description in like less than a minute.
Seriously, a whole song.
That's what they say. Then there's Udio, which can listen to you speak lyrics and then sing them back in harmony.
Oh, okay, that's wow.
And platforms like Boomy, SoundDraw, AIVA, they're designed to just automatically generate music, background stuff, even whole albums. And Google has Music LM, which can turn written descriptions into pretty complex multi-instrument music.
This sounds almost like science fiction. Are these just experiments, though, or are people actually using them?
Oh, no, not experimental anymore. Soul Chop really emphasizes these are being actively used right now by artists, marketers, content creators, even the big players in the music industry.
Really?
Yeah, they make a pretty bold statement. There are songs on Spotify, Apple Music right now that no human ever actually performed.
Wow, that definitely changes things.
It really shows how fast this is moving from theory to actual practice.
Okay, so AI isn't some future thing. It's here. And with all these capabilities, it leads right back to that question Soul Chop raises. Is this tech making music better or just faster?
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And, I mean, to even start answering that, we have to tackle a really abstract concept.
Right. What does soul actually mean when we talk about music?
Soul Chop Records spends quite a bit of time trying to unpack that.
And it's obviously not just about soul music as a genre.
Exactly. They stress that it's not just a specific sound or style. They define it more as the emotional residue of something true being communicated.
Emotional residue. I like that.
Yeah, it's a gut feeling you get, isn't it? When you hear something truly honest and authentic.
They give some great examples too, don't they? Like the way a singer's voice might crack with emotion, or even the silence between notes used deliberately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those little imperfections, those intentional choices by the artist. They talk about a drum beat that's maybe just slightly behind the beat, but somehow that makes the groove feel heavier, more human.
Right, the feel.
For Soul Chop Records, soul is deeply tied to human stuff. Intention, memory, culture, lived experience.
Yeah.
And they make a really key point. AI doesn't have those things.
It hasn't lived a life.
Exactly. It doesn't know loss. It doesn't have nostalgia. It doesn't feel that physical thump of a bass line in its chest. So while it might be able to technically copy the sound of those soulful moments, can it ever truly feel them or mean them?
That seems to be the core of their argument against AI having soul.
I think so, yeah.
So it's like soul is this uniquely human fingerprint that AI just can't replicate. But then they do look at the other side, right? The arguments for using AI in music.
Absolutely. They present the counter-arguments. They acknowledge that plenty of people see AI as a powerful new tool for creativity, not just a threat.
Okay, like what? What are the main points in favor?
Well, a big one is accessibility. AI could seriously lower the technical hurdles to making music.
Yeah.
Meaning if you have a musical idea buzzing around in your head, you might be able to bring it to life using AI without needing, years of piano lessons or mastering complex software.
Okay, so it could kind of democratize music creation, let more people make music.
That's the potential, yeah. And it could also just spark totally new creative ideas. Maybe an AI generates a simple melody, but then a human artist takes that and builds something really personal and meaningful around it.
So using it as a starting point or a collaborator.
Exactly. And Soul Chop is careful to point out that for many artists, that's how they see it. Not as a replacement, but as an assistant, maybe. A way to augment their own creativity.
Do they mention any specific artists using it?
Yeah, they name drop a few well-known ones like Grimes, Timbaland, Arca, even Diddy. People who are experimenting with these tools, not to let the AI take over, but to kind of amplify what they're already doing.
So it really comes down to how it's used, maybe. The intention behind it.
Seems like it. Soul Chop makes that comparison again to the 808 and the MPC. Those tools have been used to make all sorts of music, some deeply soulful, some maybe less so. The tool itself isn't inherently soulful or soulless.
Right. It's the human using it.
The human intention, yeah. That seems to be the key. And this leads nicely into Soul Chop Records' own experience with AI. Because they're not just talking theory here.
Right. You said they'd actually use the tools.
They've been experimenting in their own work.
Okay, that's really interesting. So what did they find? What have their hands-on experience has been like?
Well, they share that they've used tools like Udio, for example, to quickly sketch out musical hook ideas.
Just to get something down fast.
Kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. And Suno to explore different melodic paths. They've even played around with voice cloning tech.
Whoa! Voice cloning.
Yeah, though they're quick to say their goal wasn't to, trick anyone. It was more about exploring what the technology could actually do.
Okay. But even after using these tools themselves, they still hold a pretty firm line about AI's role, don't they?
They do. They seem to see it as a potentially valuable assistant, but they draw a very clear line when it comes to the emotional heart of the music.
So back to the human element.
Right. They still champion those human imperfections. The slight wobble in a voice, that drum hit that's just a tiny bit off, because that's often where the real feeling comes through most strongly. For Soul Chop, if they make music about, say, heartbreak, it comes from real human experience, their own or someone they know. If they use a sample from an old soul record, it's because they feel a connection to the emotion in that original piece.
I see.
So for them, AI can help with the technical stuff, maybe speed things up. But the craft, as they put it, the curation, the care, that's where the soul is. And that stays human.
Okay. So looking ahead then, What's Soul Chop's prediction for the future of music with all this AI coming online? Are we just going to drown in generic AI tunes?
Well, they acknowledge we'll probably see a lot more AI-generated music, background stuff for videos, maybe loads of easily forgettable tracks.
The sheer volume will increase.
Yeah, but they compare it to previous tech shifts, like when cheap synths flooded the market in the 80s, or when digital beats became super accessible in the 2010s. There was a similar surge in just stuff. But the real question, they argue, is what lasts, what actually sticks with people. And they believe it's the stuff with genuine feeling.
That's hopeful, actually. So the idea is that in this huge ocean of AI music, the truly authentic human stuff might actually stand out more, become more valuable.
That's their take, yeah. That people will ultimately crave and connect with what feels real. Artists who use their own experiences, maybe using AI smartly as a tool, but keeping that human core, they'll be the ones who resonate.
Okay.
But they do raise a really important challenge alongside that.
Which is?
The need to educate the next generation about storytelling, about emotional depth in music. Because as they put it, AI will only ever be as soulful as the data it learns from.
Ah, right. Garbage in, garbage out, basically.
Kind of. If we don't keep valuing and teaching those intangible things, feel, swing, depth, real emotion, we risk ending up with music that has all the right sounds, the right texture, but no real emotional temperature.
Texture without temperature. I like that framing. So let's bring this deep dive home. Back to that first big question. Can AI have a heart? Can it have soul?
Based on Soul Chop Records' perspective, the answer they give is a pretty clear no. AI can't have a heart. But, as they say directly to you, the listener, you do. They really emphasize that it's your own heart, your own life experiences. That's what gives art soul. It doesn't matter as much what tools you use to make it.
That's a really powerful place to land. So even with all this incredible tech, the human spark is still the essential ingredient.
That's the message. Soul Chop seems to encourage embracing the new tools, exploring what's possible.
But never losing touch with that core humanity, that feeling.
Exactly. And they leave us with one final thing to think about. How might you use your own heart, your own experiences when you engage with music or maybe even create it in this changing landscape? What kind of temperature do you want to bring to the texture of music going forward?
Something to definitely mull over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Subscribe to my channel.